This video, we're going to continue adding detail to this piece of modern furniture, and I'm just going to look back at my reference and see what's going to be my next approach to finishing this piece. So we have this part complete, and the base and the backing of it. Now we need to start adding detail and kind of separating the different pieces that comprise this whole furniture, and yeah, let's begin doing that. One thing to keep in mind is that I am going to be using the keyboard number 3 to get a smooth preview like this. And another thing that I like to do, and again, the reason for that is that I find it easier to do a preview, smoothing, and see how it's turned out, rather than having to add a smoother through my mesh and then having to remove it. The other thing that I'm going to do, as you can see, when you render through the when you render and you have a smoother, it doesn't really translate into your render. So I want to make sure that my smoothing actually translates into my rendering. So I'm going to change my render from Maya software into my mental ray, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that one more time. And through mental ray, it actually renders the smoothing created by pressing 3. So let's start adding some detail into this section and the backing of it. So I'm going to start by adding a couple of edge loops to be able to turn this into a little bit of sharper corners. Again, they're not super sharp, but there is a little bit of sharpness to it, and this is a little bit too smooth in order to fit what the reference is showing us. So I'm just going to go ahead and select my insert edge loop tool, and nice thing is that I actually get a preview of what my original geometry looks like. So I can start adding edge loops right here. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to add them to the side. A little bit easier to manage than by having them in the top part. And by doing that, again, I get a little bit of sharpness, but while still maintaining the smoothness. So that looks really nice. And I'm going to do something similar to this piece right here before I start kind of separating each part. So again, pressing 3 for my previous smoother, and again, there is not enough geometry in my original model to sustain this, so I need to add a little bit more geometry to make sure that the sharpness is there. So I can see the cage of my original geometry, and I'm adding a couple edge loops so I can see a little bit more sharpness. And again, I'm adding that to the sides and not necessarily to the top parts, because it's easier to manage by selecting this whole edge loop and just moving it up and down depending on the amount of sharpness that I want. Let's see what else. There's a little bit of sharpness around here and in the backing of it, and then on this part right here, so you can see in my reference right over there as well. So I'm going to make sure I add an edge loop for that as well. So something like this, and then one in the backing of it right over here. If your insert edge loop tool is not producing loops that are going around your geometries, because the fluency of the geometry is not good enough for it to do that. So just keep in mind that if you don't have good geometry, the insert edge loop tool might not work for you. Alright, so I'm gonna just kind of move back here a little bit, get an idea of what it's looking like right now. So far, it's looking pretty close to what it needs to be. The next step is I'm basically going to go back and start kind of separating the different pieces. So I'm going to start with the this part over here, and I'm going to select the polygons that I want to separate from the rest of it, and I'm going to be using the extract tool. So I'm going to click on that and extract, and again, notice now that it's become two separate pieces of geometry. So I'm going to be selecting next 3 right here, and again I want to make sure I do select all of the geometry that I need to extract. So perhaps I should be doing this in an orthographic viewport. Perhaps I'll just select more than I need to and then just deselect what I don't need. Going back into my perspective, making sure that's all I have selected and nothing else. Seems like that's the case. So again, mash, extract. Now these are two separate pieces. Going back to this one. Next part, I think the next division's around there, so basically here. So right there, and we're going to do G for it to extract again. And now each one of these is going to be a separate piece, and I can just select them and kind of get an idea of what they looked when you smooth them out. And let me just remove my wireframe. As you can see, there's a division, but it's not really showing the actual division of it. And the reason for that, it's because, let's see, trying to center my pivot here. We actually have a hole on the side here, so we're gonna have to go into every single one of them and actually fix that before we can actually see the actual cut of it. So I'm just gonna be easier if I just select this and go into show and then isolate it, so I can fix each one. And again, I'm gonna do that by going into mesh, fill a hole, and then just kind of connect components. Let's see, poly tools, connect my components, and I'm going to be doing that with the same thing around here. G. So if I do a smoothing of it, let's see, we can actually see the cut there now, but now it's a little bit too rounded. So I'm going to be using the insert edge loop tool to make this a little bit sharper. And let's see, insert edge loop tool. Alright, so now we have that cushion. And then I'm going to be doing pretty much the same thing to every single one of these, because every one of these is going to be having. So again, I want to make sure that I center the pivot. Just kind of makes it easier for me to work with. So center pivot. Again, just to make sure that I'm only working on the piece that I want, I can just isolate this. Go to mesh, fill a hole. Then I'm going to select these vertices and connect my components. Same on the other side, because this one has a hole on two sides. G. Alright. Then I'm going to go into my object mode and get out of isolator mode right here. Do a smoothing preview, having the same problem on both sides, so I'm going to have to insert edge loop tool right here at the edges. Alright, so that's looking really nice. Let's select the next one. Again, I want to isolate it. I'm actually going to kind of detach this so I can isolate it without having to go to the show tab for that. So again, I'm just going to select this, isolate it, and mesh, fill a hole, vertex, connect components, same thing over here. Okay, we're also going to have to connect, maybe fix this geometry a little bit at some point, but for now, again, I can just do a smoothing preview, and I can go and insert a couple of edge loops over here, just so I can create a little bit of sharpness there. Alright, and I'm gonna... Alright, so now that's looking really good right there, and then let's just select the last one and do same thing, just isolate it, go to mesh, fill a hole, connect components, and I'm actually going to just go ahead and add the edge loops right now. Right here. Alright, and then get out of the isolator mode, go into my smooth preview. Alright, so now the top part of the couch is kind of being separated into pieces, and now we're going to pretty much do the same thing with the bottom part in the following video.